Now we will be continuing our public hearing from where we left off on July 6th. As stated in our last meeting, one of the duties of the Plan Commission is to conduct a public hearing in order to listen to and record the testimony of the public whenever the city considers requests, including a zoning map amendment, also known as rezoning, approval of a special use, and variance requests. For everyone in the room, so we understand exactly how this process works, the citizens of the Planning and Zoning Board, which are the individuals up on the stage to my right, are appointed positions. We are not elected officials. We're appointed recommendation board that conducts public hearings for the city of Plano. Once we've conducted the public hearing of this subject, we will then make a recommendation to the City of Plano Council, which is comprised of elected aldermen and the mayor. They will have the final vote for or against the petitioner's request regarding this public hearing. Each interested party who plans to speak during the public hearing tonight, whether you wish to testify or ask a question, present a witness, or cross-examine any witnesses, must register first on the public hearing interested party registration sheet, which was located outside on the table of the auditorium. Interested parties are defined as all owners of record within 250 feet in each direction of which the location of the property is located, and who have received a certified letter in the mail about this hearing tonight. Also, interested parties may include any taxing body or units of local government, including school districts, in which the subject property is located. If you wish to speak tonight and have not registered yet on our sheet, please do so while I continue to read the procedures for tonight. Additionally, the last half an hour of each scheduled session has been set aside for public comments by the general public of up to 3 minutes per speaker. This part of the evening will be open to anyone who wishes to approach the podium, microphones located in each aisle, and to speak to the commission. We will also have guidelines and procedures in place for the public comment section of our evening as well, and I will read through those closer to the time before we begin that portion of the evening. We encourage you also to sign up to speak for the public comment sign-up sheet if you wish to speak tonight during public comment, and we'll call for the comments in order of how you signed up. This is the order of how this public hearing will go. The petitioner, Plano Skies, will initially provide the opening overview of their proposal, after which they will be presenting their proposal in detail, describing it through various witnesses that they've brought here tonight, written items, and reports. After each of their witnesses and presentations by the petitioner, Plano Skies, or their experts, the commission members sitting to my right may then ask questions of the petitioners and the city staff and consultants with regard to this project. Cross-examination of Plano Skies and its witnesses may also be conducted by those interested parties who have signed up on the interested party registration sheet. Upon completion of the petitioner's full proposal, the commission will then hear the testimony of interested parties, both for and against the petitioner. They will be able to come up and speak based on those, again, signed up on the interested party registration sheet. Following the testimony by the interested parties, the petitioner, Plano Skies, and the commission may also ask questions to the interested parties speaking tonight. Upon completion of the evidence by interested parties, the petitioner, Plano Skies, may provide a rebuttal to any of the testimony spoken in opposition, subject again to cross-examination by the interested parties. When there's no further testimony, the hearing will then be closed, and the commission, later during this meeting or at a future date, will take its vote and make its recommendation in writing to the Plano City Council. If the issue is not voted on tonight, we will then be making a motion to continue this public hearing for a future date until the action of the petition will be considered. In order to speak during the hearing as an interested party, I just again ask that you state your name, address, and signature must appear on the registration sheet. And by signing the registration sheet, you understand and agree that your statements will be considered sworn testimony and that you will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Therefore, we will not need to swear you in each time you speak. Please be concise in your testimony. If your point has already been made during the hearing, it will not be necessary to be repeated, and each item addressed and each point made is recorded by us and considered by the commission to make our final findings and recommendation to the council. When it's your turn to testify, please approach either microphone in front of the aisle, speak directly into the microphone so that you may be heard, and state your name and spell your last name for the reporter located on my right. Also, please indicate if you're representing an entity, please give the address. If you speak after your initial testimony, please give your name again each time for the record. At the conclusion of the testimony, the commissioners will be asked to consider whether they've heard adequate testimony in order to make a decision. If they have, the public hearing will then be closed, and we as a commission will discuss and move to action. Once the public hearing is closed, the city staff and consultants will offer their comments based on testimony presented at the hearing and consider the comments of other entities such as other local government units, and the commission shall then proceed to vote on these items presented by the petitioner, Plano Skies. This is the only public hearing this evening on the agenda, which addresses petitions for rezoning of the properties currently in Plano, annexation, and rezoning of the properties outside of Plano, special use permitting for a ground-mounted solar farm energy system, and variances to our current city code. With that being said, my goal as chair is always to ensure that everybody feels that they had the opportunity to be heard, and I respectfully ask that all parties respect all of the commission members here tonight and the guidelines that we've put in place for this public hearing. We will not tolerate any disrespectful behavior and will be asked to leave if I feel necessary. Also, as a reminder, you can also email comments to an email address that is stated comments@cityofplanoillinois.org. If you are going to make any comments and you didn't have the opportunity to speak tonight, there is an option to email and then any comments or thoughts, and every commission member will get a printout of that. So if you don't speak tonight and you leave here and wish to make a comment, you can always email that. They just ask that if you could put a descriptor in the subject line, for example, solar project, solar public hearing, something along that line, so that your comments can be included and can get into our hands so we can read them. With that being said, I would need a motion to reopen the public hearing tonight.
So moved.
Motion by Cliff Olson. I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Riddle. Roll call vote.
Olson,
Yes.
Riddle,
Yes.
Brummel,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Klatt,
Yes.
Router,
Yes.
Roderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. We have reopened the public hearing. I will now hand it over to you to bring forward your witnesses and let us know what topics you're covering tonight.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Anna Chalupa. I am the development manager on this project. Tonight, I would like to introduce two different topics. We will be covering first property values, and then we will be moving on to economic impact, and that will wrap up our expert testimony for the hearing process. I do want to remind everybody that this QR code does take you to the Plano Skies website, in which we will have all of the presentations, past and current, available for easy viewing, and we will also be updating the website and the tracker with next permitting steps so everybody is aware of exactly what's coming up. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Mike Maru to talk about property values.
Good evening. My name is Michael Maroos. Do I need to be sworn in?
You swear or affirm the testimony you give in this body, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. So I'm a general certified appraiser of the state of Illinois, as well as 7 proximate states. I hold the MAI designation. I've probably appraised over $20 billion worth of properties and appraised and prepared over 300 property value impact reports from solar, wind, church, industrial, landfills, and other type of redevelopment when there is a zoning change requested. My clients include private corporations, probably over 50 public body clients in the state of Illinois, including Kendall County. And I've testified before many groups and have been involved with over 75 solar projects from as small as 2 megawatts to as big as, I think, 1,100 megawatts, with predominantly most of them in the state of Illinois. I've taught, I've lectured, I'm past president of the Chicago chapter of the Appraisal Institute. I've sat on several boards. I'm cited in about 20 books. So this just summarizes some of the solar and wind projects that I have been involved with. We've done studies, and also kind of the newest, hottest is the battery energy storage, which is not a topic of tonight. In this situation, I reviewed the specifics, the engineering of the project. I reviewed your zoning. We did research in the area for demographics, trends of development, and then sales of residential properties, and also sales of land in the area. Again, I've had experience in the valuation of property, so I'm familiar to the Plano, Kendall County market. I think most of the information regarding to the size, the 200 megawatts, the setbacks 200 feet from the tip of a edge of a residence to a solar array, the economic generation, which Dr. Loomis will go in more specifics, I believe you've heard. And like I said, I've toured the project area on multiple occasions. As a result of the market impact analysis, which is a report that was published and presented to you, I believe, quite a while ago, it's my opinion based on this information that this development will have no negative impact on residential properties nor on agricultural properties in the surrounding areas. In fact, in my opinion, it's going to have a positive economic impact. So when we look at any project, and whether it's solar, whether it's an industrial project, whether it's a commercial shopping center development, we look at a residential development, we look at appearance, we look at environment and sustainability, noise and odor. Is there smoke, which unfortunately most of us have dealt with the last 3 days. Odor, downwind from a landfill or a hog containment facility are examples, or a heavy manufacturing facility. Are there proximate hazardous materials? BP, Amoco, let's say you're doing a refinery. And what is the impact on the public services? With a residential development, is it going to be a stress on the schools, on the police and the fire and the garbage pickup, et cetera? Or is it going to add a positive economic issue? And we look at, is it going to have an impact on the roads, but what's it going to have on the impact of jobs, and what's it going to add to the economics of the economy? And again, I read and reviewed Dr. Loomis's study. I've had familiarity with this. I'm familiar with the state statute. It's obviously significant positive economic to the economy. The other issue is public safety, where you're not having, let's say, where you have a shopping center, you have late night restaurants, other entertainment facilities, or other issues where you require public safety in this situation. There's basically no demand on public safety. So how do I come to the conclusion, and how do I support it rather than just saying I've appraised 12,000 properties? What we do in every situation is, first of all, we look at the economics, which I've just discussed, and that's extremely positive with basically no stress on the economy. But we look at what's called a match pair, and we look at a sale of a residential property that's proximate to a solar farm or a solar array, and in the same general market where they're not proximate, look to see similar age of the property, similar building size, similar functions, similar lot size, demand in the market to see if there's any impact based on the introduction of a solar farm. Now, how can I do that in Plano when you don't have one? We go to other markets, and I think I've developed probably over 100 of these matched pairs in the last few years. And I'm just giving an example of what's in the report here. And this is one in Illinois, and it gives the address. And what's interesting about this is the first sale, 1A, sold in March 2026. It's 572 feet from a solar array. And it sold for $213,000 in fairly similar condition. About a year earlier, it sold for $179,250. So the house was built in 1968, 1,400 square feet, 2 acres, 1 story, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, 2-car garage, and then it was analyzed with the sale in a similar situation. That's a newer house, bigger house, 2,048 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, that sold for $260,000. And actually on a price per foot basis, with a 2026 sale, the proximate to the solar farm, and you can see the picture on top where the tip of the edge of the house, the closest to the solar array, is shown there, and it actually indicated no negative impact on value. And as I go through my report, I have probably at least 30 or 40 examples of similar situations where we develop the data, we look at the comps to see, and what are we looking at? Setbacks. The state statute is now 150 feet. In my opinion, 200 is a little bit better. Screening is important. Multiple sides is important. The quality of development is important. And that's what is looked at. So, you know, these were the pictures of the 2 houses, just as an example, and this is shown throughout the report. And this is just showing on the far right, the purple is the sale of the one proximate to solar. No, I'm sorry, 1A, 1B is the one proximate. You can see the solar farm to the south of it. And then 1C, which is directly to the east, is the one that's not proximate. When we did the report, went to the market and looked for arm's length sales, not sales between parties, not sales subject to condemnation, but sales that took place in the Plano market. There's 8 sales in here, and you know, we're generally, these properties were in the $300,000 to $500,000 range. There's one below, and there's a couple above, and you know, that goes to modernization, quality, condition, amenities, building size, lot size, and this is just a map that's provided in the report. The other thing, then, go to a literature review to look at peer-reviewed published articles, to look at studies where they've done nationwide studies, and they've analyzed, and they've gone out, and then they've obtained significant amount of data. They've published it, and basically, what's kind of an underlying issue that comes out of these before solar is introduced into an area, there's concern, there's fear of the unknown, there's some negativity, but once it's developed, they find no evidence of any impact on value. So this is just a summary of these articles. The other thing that we do is I contact assessors in the counties that have had active solar to see, number one, their experience with it, number two, are they finding values proximate to solar arrays any different than similar properties in, let's say, a different neighborhood? And have they had tax appeals where there have actually been a hearing where they've been given relief based on a negative impact? And it's, again, consistent issues. When the first comes into a county, they're uncertain, they're not sure what they're going to find. And once the solar farms are developed, they're finding that they become part of the fabric of the community, and they found no negative impact. And of the 120 assessors that I've interviewed throughout the Midwest, and also Illinois heavily, they haven't provided, or there have been no indications of a reduction in value due to negative impact. And that probably, probably a couple million acres of land. So taking economics, match pair, peer review, assessor study, my experience with looking at value impact on a daily basis and values on a daily basis, I found no negative impact on value based on the proposed project. And that concludes my comments, and I'm ready for any questions.
Just to clarify, I missed the part, with the Clay County match pair number 1, was that you made, that was not an arm length sale, you said?
No, that was. I was introducing that the goal is to get arm's length sales.
Okay. And then do you have any, I know this is like a specific one house, one property. Do you have any like broad data? Not just like one specific house, any like revenue, in let's just say Clay County, because you feel like that's the most matched to where we're at, right? That's why you picked
Well,
Clay.
that was one of them. I probably have 30 or 40 in my report.
And do you have like, not just a specific sale in comparison, but an overall average? Where like the homes increased or decreased on average, not just one specific sale. These seem to be like picked out properties, but do you have any data that would be like overall?
Consistently, they're at or above the county average in the counties that they're in.
Okay.
And because of the positive economics, generally they're at or above. And clearly values can be impacted if you lose a major employer, or you have problems with a school, or you have other negativity that's going to impact. But based on the solar development alone, it's been positive. In fact, I'm just working on something last week where it was a 300 megawatt project. And there was serious concern by a couple property owners, and one that had solar arrays, 2 directions, one 300 feet, one 400 feet, just sold 5 days on the market for $495,000. They're asking $499 in 5 days, and it previously sold for $350,000. But the whole county values were coming up because the economics of the county in general and the area in general were going up, and it kind of followed the tide.
Commission members, do we have any questions, thoughts? If you, the process will be, we will ask questions, then we'll open it to the interested parties, and then obviously we would have another opportunity to ask questions if something does arise. Or do you have a question now?
Do you have any data on negative impact?
Yes, poorly planned projects where solar arrays had minimal landscaping, they're less than 100 feet from a residence, and the solar farm wasn't properly kept, or a situation where you're in an area of relatively high density suburban development. I could just say Hinsdale or Oak Brook, where there's an area that redevelopment is for residential or office, and it's stopping the flow of development. There's been situations where there's been concerns not really provable because those areas generally don't get it. But there's a interesting study, it's called the Rhode Island study, where they went and they found negative impact in areas by the coastal where values, the houses were generally 700,000 plus. And then when they looked and they found the areas that were more rural in character, they found no negative impact. So that's almost the best, one of the best examples.
Okay, how about a ratio between negative and positive impact?
You mean in the studies?
I mean
Or what I
overall,
found?
overall, are you looking at more negative impact across the board, or do you look at more positive impact across the board, or what does it look like in the big picture? I think that was kind of what Kara was getting at when it comes to the picking like one example of a house sale here, or a house sale. What about the big picture? What's that look
The
like?
big picture is overwhelmingly positive. To put a percentage on it might be unfair, but it's probably well in excess of 90%.
Anyone other questions? If not, we can ask questions after interested parties speak. We would now open this time to interested parties that wish to speak and ask any questions regarding the subject matter that we just were presented, which would be property values. And
First interested party is Eric Light. Do you have any questions?
Hello, Eric Light, 15540 Miller Road.
Mr. Light, before you begin, I'm supposed to swear in everybody, so please raise your right hand, and everybody else do the same thing.
I do. Just a couple questions, a lot of information there. So you said that from your review on this project, that you thought that there would be positive economic impact.
Correct.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yes. You want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
You have, number one, tax revenue, which Dr. Loomis will give you specifics, but I believe it's plus or minus $1.5 million per year, which goes obviously into the schools, probably get 50 to 60% of it, which is a huge positive impact. There's potential taxes could be reduced, but I'm not ever going to estimate that's going to happen. But there's going to be money for the other public services in the county and the city of Plano on down the line. Stress on the economy and cost, it's going to be minimal. There will be significant number of jobs added during the construction period. People say, well, construction jobs are temporary. All construction jobs are temporary. So that's just part of, the home building industry, what they go through. Then there will be some permanent jobs in the after. There will be some jobs created to maintain the facility.
Okay. What about directly in regards to adjoining properties, both residential and farmland that butt up to this? You say that would there be positive economic impact on those locations?
There are two different land types.
Okay.
But the residential, you have all of a sudden a setback between future development, whether it be a new farm with general farming going on, agricultural buildings, silos, etc., and that development. And so you have buffer from that use, and you have buffer from future residential subdivisions over a 25 to 35-year period. And whatever improves the value of the schools and the quality of the government and everything else goes to the quality of the community, and that goes to values. Residential, ag land, you have land that basically usually a premium is paid either for a purchase or a lease, which raises supply and demand situation. You're taking supply off the market, and you're creating increased values for this area that happens time and time again.
So you would say that agricultural land around there would likely increase in value?
Yes.
So increasing tax burden on those farmers as well? Because the values have increased?
So that's an interesting question because it's usually based on productivity, not on market value, just based on statute from the state of Illinois. So probably not. But, you know, our government can have other reasons to change the formula based on market value, no.
Yeah, so would you think that those increased values, the reason that would increase would be because of the solar and the supply and demand you spoke about? Would that be to add more solar fields around it? That's why the increase would go up? That people would say, hey, listen, there's more property around that, let's put another solar field in.
That's an interesting question. For somebody to do that, they're going to have to come in and basically do what Savion has done, which take many years, spend a lot of money, have engineering and get approvals. It's not easy. So that kind of cuts it out and makes it more difficult. Anything's a possibility. You could have residential, you could have commercial, you could have industrial. I can't predict the future, but what it does is it raises the level of values, and it takes some of the nearby land out of farmland production, and the combination of the impacts raise land values.
Okay. What about residential developments? Have you experienced any new residential developments after one of these have been deployed? I mean, keeping in mind that I think the first solar field this large, it hasn't been in place very long, 5 to 10 years, if that. So have there been any new residential projects adjoining to one of these solar projects that have been installed of this size, not a 20 acre or 40 acre, 1,500 acres around there?
Well, you've gone from 20 acres to 1,500.
No, I'm saying not the 20 to 40 acres. I'm talking around a 1,500 acre project.
Most of the developments that big are in agricultural areas, and there's continual residential development, but they're not areas that generally have major, let's say, subdivision type development. There's one of the first big projects in the Midwest was just north of Minneapolis, St. Paul, 100 megawatt, 12 to 1,500 acres, surrounded residential, and there were concerns there. Values have gone up, and there's been residential development around there. In Illinois, the bigger projects, have gone through entitlement. Quite a few have been approved. Most of them haven't been really operating for that long a time period. Wisconsin has several in southern Wisconsin: Darien Solar, Paris Solar. There's been scattered residential, but that's the way those areas generally are. You don't come in and see a Pulte come in and do a 100-lot subdivision.
That would be the contrast to here, because we do have large subdivisions just south of that, and property slated originally for that. So that doesn't matter. But so that in Clay County, how large was that project? The Clay County project that you cited for values? How large was it?
I believe that, it was utility scale. I would have to check, but I believe it's over 100 megawatts.
Acreage wise?
Well, generally the developments, they build on about 5 acres per megawatt, but they're generally, with setbacks and everything else in odd shapes, 6 to 8 acres per megawatt. So 100 megawatt would probably be 800 to 1,000 acres.
Okay. So, of course, you can't predict the future, but would you say that there, in your opinion, there will be no negative impacts to adjoining properties? Homes, residential prices, time of sale, or sitting on sale on the MLS, these types of things?
For this project, no, not in my opinion.
In your opinion? Okay. I'd have a question now for Savion then at that point. So if he's saying that in his opinion, you know, we have to rely on opinions, right? And it is that an opinion. Would Savion agree to purchasing a insurance and surety bond and possibly even agreement to purchase homes that lose value in the future for the derangement or the duration of the project?
I think overall that kind of goes outside the bounds of the project and what we are building here. That's irregular for any development to take on responsibility and liability for surrounding houses, whether that's a distribution center, whether that's anything, a farm. It's pretty irregular for any development to do so. So in the case that property values that you felt it did go down to from the reasoning of the solar property, we would of course have a complaint log and we could investigate into that, and if we found it to be our cause, we could work to find a resolution, but we would not take those preemptive steps necessarily, but would of course help satisfy any response afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
And I would ask Mr. Maroos to also add, he can also answer questions relating to property value guarantees and his experience with those.
Your next speaker, is that who you're saying?
No.
Oh, okay.
So property value guarantees, which basically what you're asking for, is a boon to business like mine. However, and I've looked at it numerous times, consulted on numerous times. The only one I've seen done is done for a landfill, where you've got smell, you got truck noise, you got a massive amount. And for solar, number one, the state, I believe, specifically addressed not to be considered in the ordinance that was, passed, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. But number two, you get into a situation with market conditions, care and maintenance of a property, properly marketed, what was the baseline value, and how do you determine it? And, I had one that was in Vermilion County where there was an allegation that there was a negative impact on value. And I got a hold of the old appraisal during the time period, and it was done actually by the assessor who also had an appraisal company. And I said, did you have a negative adjustment for the proximity of the solar? Because the property sold 3 years later for less, or it was not solar, it was wind. And he said, no, I looked at it both times, and the second time they went through a divorce, they had a barn falling down, the house was in disrepair, it didn't show well, and the market conditions were worse. It had nothing to do with the wind farm. So there's so many factors, and it also becomes who's the trier of fact, and it becomes a huge burden to administer. It's a nice boon for appraisers, but is the same appraiser that does it today going to be around to do it in 5 years? And how do you administer that? So it just hasn't worked. And I can understand your concern, but on the other end, because I get involved in a lot of disputes, well, if your property goes from $350,000 to $500,000, you sell it, and you're 300 feet from a solar farm, are you going to participate with the solar farm for creating value for you? So that kind of cuts also both ways. I mean, it's a very good question, but
Yeah.
it hasn't worked.
The only difference in that last part of it, though, is that's a corporation, and this is somebody that is one of the people of the state. So it's two different things.
Well, it's ownership, but I'm into value and property rights, but I appreciate, and I agree with you. It is two different.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Savion, has there been any movement on decisions of you maintaining the project?
Not at this time, no. Nothing from previous statements. Of course, I'll reiterate for anyone that wasn't there that a future for the project has not been decided upon. That's typically done after permitting for any project anyways. So we are still in the same position we were before, that is up to how things move forward.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. next interested party on the list is Will Statman, S-T-A-T-T-M-A-N.
He's going to speak after all the experts.
Okay.
We'll ask him
Chris Wilkes,
again.
Wykes.
Yes, it's Chris Wykes and 14176 Sears Road. I live right across from the big bulk of the project, and you're still telling us, I mean, I've read that it only decreases the value 1 to 5% of your value of your property now. And you've cited that it would increase probably if the, I don't understand. I mean, I'm looking right now at crops. It's a beautiful view. It's going to change from a beautiful view to fields of glass. How, I mean, even with the berm there, it's going to be not what it was. My question is, you're paid by Savion or Black Dirt Farms, or who's paying you to give your testimony?
My client in this situation is Savion. I have my own company, and that's what we do, is we do valuation analysis and report. It's our job.
Okay, well, you're still saying there's going to be we're not going to be devalued because of this, correct?
That's correct.
And we have really no course in the future if our values go down because of that, correct?
I'm not a title company. I'm providing my professional judgment based on looking at all the facts and the data and the analysis and the project as proposed.
Okay, and I'm just going to state that if I was looking for a house to buy, I wouldn't say to a real estate agent, can you show me a house near a solar farm? No one asks that, or have you had people say, I'm an environmentalist, I want to live next to a solar farm?
So, an offshoot of the example I had earlier in the same project, there was only one offer 4 days after, within 96% of the sale price. There were many people who looked at the project, many people were interested, several were not interested because of solar and the concern, which we see if I'm appraising a house. People come in and say, I don't like the color, I'm not going to buy it, I don't like the location, I don't like the neighborhood, I don't like...
Okay, location.
But no, I'm answering your question. So in that same situation, there was another house that sold.
John Wykes.
I'm John Wykes. I'm from 14176 Sears Road, right across from about 800 acres of this. I'd like to ask all of you, would you like to live right across the road from that? Would you like to live in a neighborhood, in a subdivision that's surrounded by that? And I can't raise my hand for that. Could you? And that's why we've already taken the action at the township level, and we're spinning our wheels here because this isn't going to happen. So, thank you.
Mike Burnett.
My name is Mike Burnett. I live at 14247 Sears Road. Neighbors to the Wykes. And you had stated that the only negative impact you'd seen was a poorly managed and miskept solar field had affected the property values.
In proximity of 100 feet or less from the tip of the house to a solar array, which I believe is significantly different than your situation.
It could be, but there was still a negative impact by poorly kept situation, correct? And Savion has just said that they have no significant plans at this point whether they're going to keep it or they're going to sell it off to somebody else. And so there's no future promise of upkeep on this. And as I understand it, they've been trying to get away from the berms, been trying to get away from a lot of the screening. And so the project, in my opinion, seems to be already going downhill. And when asked if they're going to maintain it and keep the property, they just answered clearly, we have no set plans at this time. I believe that was your words. So there's no guarantee that this isn't going to be sold to some bunch of carpetbaggers that are going to do nothing with it and let it get overgrown. And unless you're willing to make a commitment, I don't see why we need to approve it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Andy? Somebody from 15115 Miller Road. Andy, it looks like. I don't know the last name.
And Kano.
Kano.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Cano. I live at 15115 Miller Road. I will also be right across the street from this proposed project. And your name's Moros, is that how you pronounce your last name, sir?
Maroos.
Maroos, okay. Of the 75 solar projects that you appraised, how many have been constructed and ownership held by the same company during the entire installation?
I'll answer it the best I can. I don't have the specific answer, but generally, the company that gets the entitlements does the development. Sometimes they will sell the rights to, let's say, a ComEd or a big power company, but generally not. But what happens is they get it entitled, get the engineering, get it developed, get it approved, get it opened, and then I don't know the exact, but it appears, because I don't track that, because there's different entities that they come up with, but probably 50 to 75%, at least for a certain time period, will own it, but sometimes they'll hold a bundle and they may sell, 3 to 5 projects to a third party. It's just like any developer of any type of real estate. Do they hold it, or do they have a money partner that'll pay a premium for it? It really depends.
So in your opinion, would the trend be more on the side of these projects like this changing hands multiple times, or a single entity holding the project for the entire length of the lease?
Well, the leases are 25 to 35 years, so there's no real example that I can fairly give you. I think there are certain developers that do develop them and then sell to move on. And I don't know what Savion's percentage is, but I think generally there may be a sale in the first 1 to 5 years, and then whoever buys it owns it because they're desirable and they generate cash flow and they look good because they're involved with renewable energy. There's certain companies that want to have renewable energy projects.
Okay. So the second thing we had, or you had discussed, or the second question I had is you had based your analysis on your opinion, which obviously that, there's no facts we can base this on, right? This is just based on opinion. And we have some data that backs up your opinion that you gave us.
I have 100 pages in my report that most of it is fact-based, and based on the facts, I render an opinion.
Okay, but what I saw was piece of property in Louisville, Illinois compared to Plano, Illinois?
As an example.
Okay,
The
how about
report-
Hinsdale to West Chicago? That seems like the same analysis to me. Nothing there, right? I mean, those are apples and oranges. You're talking about a piece of property so far downstate, I can hit a pitching wedge to St. Louis to it. This is a totally different area. This is Kendall County, way farther north, way more opportunity for development here. I don't see that being a fair analysis. That's my opinion.
In my report, I have many matched pairs of areas having similarity to Plano. But there aren't any in Hinsdale, and there aren't any in West Chicago.
Right. And is there any in Kendall County currently?
There are no utility scale. I think there's a couple community pending, but there's very few. But it seems like once they come in, McHenry will, they come in significantly.
So like spread like a disease. Once they're in there, they're going everywhere, right? Like measles or something like that. So the other thing you represented, I saw on your slide, you had 3 years of appraisal, right? 24, 25, 26. Do we have a bigger sample size? I mean, does that even represent a trend of 10 years or more? Do we have an example of any residential value adjacent to a solar field similar to this one that has held its property value for the 10 years from the completion of the project to current time frame?
Yes, it's in my report.
Well, we didn't see it. That's why I'm asking.
No, this was just a PowerPoint summary. My report's over 100 pages, and there are those examples. Maybe not 10, but 7 to 9.
Okay. So the other thing that, and most people we're kind of beating a dead horse. I don't think it's beating a dead horse. But you had talked about the additional tax revenue being received. So what's the difference in the tax revenue that the City of Plano and Little Rock Township's going to receive above and beyond the current tax revenue they're receiving now for how the property's zoned currently?
Yeah.
Our next witness is going to cover specifics on property taxes, so I think you should wait to ask that question.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So the last thing that I had to say is, if in your opinion, there's no negative impact on residential property value, what do we need to put a berm and trees around all of it for? Because it's going to improve the view?
Why do any of us landscape our yard? Why do we put bushes in? Why do we plant trees? Why do we put hostas in? To change the character, the look, to upgrade it.
Right.
That's all it is. It's changing the character, it's upgrading, it's softening, it's giving some variety of different views. And I believe I've been by your house and you've done a very nice job. It's not, there's character with trees and bushes and lawn, and that's all this is. It's just a way of landscaping.
Yeah, but my house doesn't have 20 tons of tempered glass in the yard. Yours does. Mine doesn't. The other thing too, and we can bring it up at another time, but I'm going to make the comment now because it was brought up before by someone else, and it's a serious concern of mine, because if you look at the current data now with the number of tornadoes, just in the state of Illinois, we are 10, 20, 30% above anybody's other statistics in the Midwest. Whose responsibility is if a tornado blows through this thing and you're spreading all that tempered glass all through the county? Who's picking up that mess? That's all I have to say.
You good?
That's the end of the interested parties who had signed up.
Commission members, any questions arise after listening to interested parties? I personally was wondering, when explaining that oftentimes we see these solar fields change hands in the first of 5 years, Do you have any data in your report, and I apologize, I have not read your report in full length, but I will be looking at that. Do you have any data based on those particular exchanges of property and the property values increasing, decreasing? You still, even with the change of hands, you see across the board the property value increasing?
So
If the solar field was to change hands, be sold within the first 5 years?
So in fairness, I can answer the question, but I haven't done a specific study with that. But based on my experience, and then what we do to the match pairs is we're going out and we're looking at existing built solar fields, and some were owned by the original developer, some have changed hands, but based on the building codes, the zoning ordinances, the control, that pretty much dictates how it's run. And the other thing is all these developers will have control rooms, you know, both generally in their operations and management, maintenance facilities, where they know when they have a bad panel, when they have a bad issue, because when they're down, they're losing money. And it'll shoot back to wherever their headquarters are, so they know to jump on it right away and maintain it. So I have not seen that where it's been done properly, because they sell it to another operator that has to maximize their return, create value, and be a good member of the community, or they're going to have problems.
I think maintenance, not so much far as operating the system, but more of controlling the vegetation screening and the landscaping within the solar project.
And I would say that's good controls by the community, you know, whether it's a city, a village, a county, a state, and that does have to be done, but it's to everybody's benefit.
Is there a way that we can gain access to this report with, is it in the
The
binder?
report is in the application,
In the application of the QR code?
on the
Or in
QR
the-
code for the public to review.
Just,
So the application is listed on the city's agenda for the evening, and that report is within the agenda. So there should be a link to the report within the agenda.
all right, I will, commission members, if anyone, I'm going to take a look at that, so if anyone needs that, I'm sure Marty or Jeff can get that to us. I have no further questions at this exact moment. Anyone else in the commission?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you for providing all the information you have so far. It's been very informative. But in the event that you have a solar field of this magnitude, is there any statistics or any data that you have provided or available to you that would explain what type of value the land would have after decommissioning of a solar property?
Great question. But there hasn't been decommissioning of utility scale solar, so there really isn't an example, but based on the decommissioning requirements and the funds set aside, basically, you know, the land has kind of been in the CRP for 25 or 30 years, so you actually have better soil. You're not, the only places you're putting the concrete is on the pads. So, you know, based on the science, and I'm not a soil expert, but based on hearing and reading and understanding the CRP program and general soil management, you're going to have better soils when it's done. You just have to make sure you're comfortable with the decommissioning. But, I mean, in the state also, and again, I'm not that engineer, but it's going to require it. So it's basically almost like a CRP type use that comes back. Crop restoration program. You probably all know that, but.
I wanted to clarify quickly as well. The report is in your guys' binder already, so the commission should have access to it. If the public wants to see it, it is linked to the agenda, so.
All right, thank you for
Thank you.
presenting. Obviously, if we come up with any other questions, it would be before the evening's done.
Yes, and I'm fairly local.
Okay.
And
If you would like to present your next witness.
All right. Last but certainly not least, we have Dr. David Loomis to talk about economic impact.
Do I need to be sworn in? I was, but I didn't raise my hand. I'm sorry. I know you said everyone, but.
Do you swear affirm that the testimony you give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Thank you for being here tonight. My name is David Loomis, and I'm here to talk about the economic impact and local tax revenue that will come from the Plano Skies solar project. A little bit about me. I am professor of economics. I'm retired, so I got the title of Professor Emeritus. I taught at Illinois State University for 26 years. I was one of the co-founders of our Center for Renewable Energy and also a renewable energy major at the university. And I am president of Strategic Economic Research, LLC, a company that I started to do research like what I'm presenting here tonight. I have over 15 years of experience in the renewable energy field, and I've published peer-reviewed articles on the economic impacts of renewable energy, and I've testified as an expert witness on numerous hearings like this at county, city, state proceedings. So I'll first talk about the economic impacts, then we'll talk about the tax revenue. When we do the economic impacts, we use a model that is called IMPLAN. IMPLAN is an input-output model that is used widely by economic development professionals for any type of project. So if you were to build a new hospital or new factory, you would go and use this type of software. Really what it does is it looks at 517 different sectors of the economy and says if you spend $1 in this sector of the economy, how does that affect all the different other sectors of the economy in that local area. And so therefore it's specific to a particular area, and in this case we looked at county impacts and state impacts. You may say, well, why didn't we run the city impacts? And the problem there is that the IMPLAN software only reliably goes down to the county level because it's based on government statistics that are released at the county level, and so you can do the state, but it's not as reliable to look at anything below the county level impacts. When you're doing an economic impact analysis, you're really taking two different measures of expenditures. The first being the capital expenditures. What is it going to take to develop and build the solar project? And secondly, what are the ongoing operations expenditures that'll be taking place throughout the life of the project? We received detailed estimates of the cost of the project from Savion in many different sectors, and then also their projections of ongoing expenditures to operate the project. We then separate out, you can see in the middle section, those into different places that it's going to be spent. So we only look at the local expenditures, in this case the county expenditures, to say what what effect is that going to have on Kendall County? And then we'll look at the state expenditures, we'll look at that in the state of Illinois, and then the non-regional expenditures, in other words, the solar panels that will be manufacturers outside the state of Illinois. And we, as you see there, use the term economic leakage for those. We say that those aren't going to get this multiplier effect. It's expenditures that flow outside the state of Illinois. But for the other two expenditures, we take that initial investment and also apply a regional multiplier effect, meaning that the money is going to circulate within the local economy. That's the beauty of an input-output model, is it accounts for a dollar cent in a certain sector and how much is that going to recycle throughout the local economy. After running the model, then we can look at three different distinct areas of impact. The first is the direct impact. So this will be for construction, those construction impacts. It'll be the jobs that will be on site, putting up racking, putting up solar panels, et cetera. And then you have indirect impacts. That's represented on the second side, the equipment production and supply chain. There on the right. So we're looking at those supply chain impacts or indirect impacts. What of those goods and services are going to be sourced from the county or elsewhere in the state of Illinois, and how much of that is going to be sourced elsewhere? So that's important. That's why it's important to segment out those costs into those different buckets. And then finally, we have what's called an induced impact. An induced impact is looking at those jobs that are created, both direct and indirect, and saying those people have money in their pockets to spend in the local economy. And so these are ordinary household purchases that people spend due to this injection of income. So for example, if I have a job, now I'm going to go to the grocery store, I'm going to dine out, I'm going to engage in entertainment and so forth. Those would be induced impacts because of those general economic prosperity. I will say the first two categories tend to be high wage, high earning jobs. The indirect impacts tend to be retail jobs that are lower wage jobs. So just to keep that in mind. So as we have mentioned, there are direct impacts during construction. These are all in full-time equivalent measures. So this is saying there's 2,080 hours in a year. We normalize because there are some times that you have ebb and flows of construction workers on site. So that's those direct impacts. That's 105 for Kendall County. Indirect impacts is an additional 132. These will be supply chain jobs that are caused not hires of Savion or their construction firm, but it'll be local businesses that will benefit by purchases made by the construction company and Savion in the local area. And then finally, those are those induced impacts. Those are those ordinary household purchases. That's another 46 jobs for a total of 283 jobs. So sometimes people say, well, there's 283 jobs, but that are construction jobs, and that's not quite right. It's 283 jobs during the construction period. Not all of them are on-site construction jobs. So just wanted to clear that up. It is true that the operations jobs are lower. We see 7 on-site direct impacts. That would be for a project of this size. Those would be solar technicians, a site manager, and maybe an administrative person. Indirect jobs are again supply chain jobs. These are ongoing expenditures from the project in the local economy that help support jobs in other firms, and then another 3.7 on induced impact. So almost 25 full-time equivalent jobs, and these are long-lasting jobs that'll last the duration of the project. And I think somebody had noted previously, in terms of those construction jobs, those are, people will term them as temporary jobs, but that is the nature of construction. And so these are 283 full-time equivalent jobs. You could think of them as job years in that way. You'll see earnings. These are considerable earnings that will flow. These are associated with the jobs that are from the previous slide. And so these are good paying jobs for people in the community for both the construction and operations time period. The third measure is economic output. Economic output is a measure like gross domestic product. It's technically the value of goods and services in the economy. It's a broader measure than earnings or jobs because it looks at all the activity in the local economy, and you can see very large numbers there for economic output that'll come from the project. I'll turn now to local taxes. So in Illinois, we have a statewide law that values solar projects according to the megawatt size of the project. So the standardized valuation is $218,000 per megawatt, but that was based on the time in which the law was passed. And so they put in a provision in that law for you to increase the value according to inflation. So there's since the law has passed to today, we measure the inflation that's taken place. And so if the Plano Skies solar project were to go into operation today, it would be based on the inflation since the law was passed to today. But then it continues to get that inflation adjustment even after it is in service. So in order to do a tax calculation, you have to assume something about inflation, something about the consumer price index specifically that's measuring inflation. And so we did make an assumption for inflation. The second factor that comes into play when you're valuing taxes of a solar project is depreciation. The law sets depreciation at 4% a year, which is a very low depreciation factor by standards of other states. Under no circumstances can the project be fully depreciated. In other words, it never goes to zero even after 25 years. You would say 25 years of 4% depreciation, it's fully depreciated, they pay no taxes. That's not the way things work. It can only take a maximum depreciation of 70%. In other words, that 30% threshold is the bottom that they would have of their original value, but as well that CPI or the inflation adjustment still takes into effect. So what you see is inflation pulling the value up. You see depreciation pulling the value down, and they're working at odds with one another. But typically what you see is if you assume that inflation is going to be less than 4%, you'll see a slight decline in value till around year 21 of a project, and then the value starts going up because the project has reached that threshold of its maximum depreciation, so it only gets the inflation factor. So what do you assume for inflation? We try and be conservative in our assumption of inflation, and in this study, we assume that future inflation would be constant over the whole life of the project at 2.23%. Given recent inflation and the Fed chairman saying that he would like to get 2% inflation, I think most people on the street would, and certainly professional economists, think that this is a very, very low assumption. You would be laughed if you went to a professional meeting and say, I think inflation's going to be 2.23% for the next 35 years. But we did it to be conservative, and so the message to you tonight is that these tax revenues are likely to be significantly higher than the numbers that I've presented here, because I think that the inflation will be higher than 2.23%. But I wanted to present one in which I would not, the general public and members of the commission would not say, well, I think inflation would be lower. I think pretty much everybody says that 2.23 is some of the lowest numbers that you could assume. And so all the idea is the revenues will be even higher than this. How much higher will depend on inflation. So if there's 6% inflation, as we've experienced in some quarters, it will be much higher than what's presented here. We did the estimate for 35 years and then assumed that the project would be decommissioned, and I won't take you through all the different bullet points here. Given those assumptions, and I'm happy to review any of the assumptions, you're looking at almost $2.3 million in property tax revenue in the first year. I list all the years because there is a decline in value where you have this inflation. So first year taxes isn't a good gauge of what this is going to be over 35 years. You can see that the decline is very small. It's $43,000 decline in the first year and so on and so forth. But in the report, it has every single year. I couldn't list 35 years on one slide and it be readable. So we skipped a few years, but I did want to illustrate how in year 2047, you hit the rock bottom of property taxes that would be collected because of that effect of depreciation pulling it down, and you've reached the maximum depreciation. So in 2048, you actually see it starting to dip up because the project is fully depreciated, and the inflation factor actually causes it to rise from 2048 to 2063, and you can see there that the 2063 number 1.4 is that cumulative inflation factor. Over the 35-year life of the project, you get $52.78 million in total taxes, again on a conservative basis with inflation. And the annual average, if you took that $52 million and divided it by the 35 years, you get an annual average of just over $1.5 million. Now you can see in the second column there, City of Plano. City of Plano in the first year will receive $198,815. That does decline slightly according to the pattern that we've seen before. But all the taxing entities will also benefit from this project. That will be Kendall County General Fund, Little Rock Township, Junior College, all receives monies from the project. In particular, as we look and try and set that amount of money in the context of the City of Plano's budget, the property tax budget is represented in the requested property tax budget, I should say, in the 2027-2028 budget is represented by that bar on the left-hand side. The additional revenue that would come from Plano Skies were it built using that year one tax revenue would provide an additional 17.6% to the property tax budget of the city. And again, that was just the first year, which is the biggest. So if you compared it over the life of the project to what the city is receiving now from property taxes, it is lower, but is still a substantial 11.57% of the annual average number. Now, when we compare it then to other taxing bodies here, that first year property tax ranking according to other property tax paying entities in the city of Plano, you see that it would rank as the number one tax-paying body or entity in the city of Plano. Menard pays $140,000, but after that, it really drops off dramatically to $26,000, and these are the top 10 entities, and so it really drops down drastically. So this is just order of magnitude. If again we did the 35-year annual average number, it would put the project slightly below there, but the second largest tax-paying entity. These are the additional taxing entities that will get tax revenue from this. That's fire districts, library districts, road districts, forest preserve would all receive dollars from this project. But as our previous witness mentioned, the biggest tax receiver in Illinois is the school district. So this would be the Plano School District would receive of those dollars over $1.5 million in the first year, a total of $35.3 million over the life of the project, with the annual average coming in just over $1 million. So in summary, the project will create or support 283 local jobs during the construction period, almost 25 long-term jobs in Kendall County for the duration of the project, $35.3 million to Plano School District, $3.3 million to the county. In total, it's $52.7 million. And again, emphasize that that's likely to be higher if inflation comes in higher than 2.23%. With that, I will entertain questions.
Given your background on renewable energy, solar and wind, and this is a broader question as far as the projects go in the state of Illinois, why do they have them zoned as ag historically and not zoned as manufacturing, especially when due to the size of, especially a project like this where we're running with more of like a solar power plant? Is there anything historically in the state of Illinois why they zone them ag and not manufacturing and keep them locked into that lower tax bracket?
I'm not a legal expert on those permitting things, but I think just looking at it as somebody who's been involved in renewable energy, it's viewed as wind and solar have been very compatible with agricultural use, and therefore seems natural as opposed to manufacturing that would restrict the areas where you would put renewable energy that's there. And then the second part, though, is the valuation, I think understanding the valuation of the agricultural land is much, much lower. And so this really kind of rectifies that situation. In Illinois, the property tax revenue that comes from solar projects is orders of magnitude higher than in many other states. Many other states have a lower valuation. Some have exemption from property tax to encourage development. And in many cases, their depreciation schedule is kind of an ordinary depreciation schedule where you depreciate over 7 years or 15 years, in which case you're taking things like 15% depreciation in the first year as opposed to Illinois that's taking 4%. So the valuation is tied to the megawatt solar as opposed to agricultural land where you're looking at the productive value of the land, and the property taxes received are much, much lower.
And let me add to that question, or that answer. In Illinois, property taxes are based on the use of the property, not the zoning of the property. So it really doesn't matter what the property is zoned. So for this particular project, whether the property that's proposed is zone ag, residential, commercial, or industrial, the taxes will be the exact same based on the use. So the underlying zoning will not affect how much taxes are received.
You based it on 2.35 or something percent inflation over 35 years. If it were to be an average of, say, double that, how would that, it wouldn't double the amount of taxes, but how much more would that be?
Yeah, if you actually, so if we said, let's say 4.4%, actually what would happen, it wouldn't double the amount of taxes that were there, but the year-over-year increase, because they can only depreciate 4%, but inflation's running higher than 4%, you'd see, instead of those numbers decline, you'd see them increase by, about 1% a year, each and every year. for that 35 years. So you'd see a lot more property tax revenue flowing in, but it wouldn't be double.
Do you have any examples of a value of a solar field where the property value decreased?
Could you explain your question more in terms of the property value?
If you had, I guess perhaps this is obvious, but let's say, for example, a solar field is installed and the property value slightly goes down, what would that do to the tax?
So the value of the underlying land that the solar sits on during the time that it's there is included in these numbers, so it's not separated out. That would be paid for by Savion or whoever owns the project for that, so there wouldn't be a kind of separate valuation.
I can add to that. This project under the state law will be taxed at 250 megawatts because that's the nameplate capacity. Regardless of sort of the value in the marketplace of the project, that doesn't matter. It's going to be taxed at 250 megawatts.
Just to follow up on that, if the underlying property that has the lease, they're still going to be paying property taxes based upon the lease value, correct?
They're going to be paying taxes on the lease value?
Won't that be how the assessor will do it?
No,
We're going to do it egg without production?
It will, the land will be, go along with the solar project.
So that'll be incorporated in the 250 megawatts at 218,000 plus the escalator?
Yes, right.
Okay.
Commission members, any other questions? With that, we can open it to interested parties who wish to approach and state your name for the record and ask any questions. First on the list would be Eric Light.
Eric Light, 15540 Miller Road. Table 2, is there any way for you to go back to that?
Yeah.
So the long-term jobs and the ongoing operation there. So 24.9, so 25 jobs, right?
Yeah.
Is that based on a 2,000 hour per year for the duration of the project?
Yeah, that's correct.
It is.
So these are full-time equivalent jobs as well.
And 7 of those would be directly on site?
Correct.
Okay. So this would be a question more for Savion. So ongoing, there is work that needs to be done on that project. Panels need to be replaced. You know, things that fall under what the carpenters would be doing on the initial install, electricians would be doing, you know, local 150 guys. Those ongoing items that'll need to be done in the next 35 years, will those be completed by those trades?
That's going to be up to the contractor who does the operations. So whoever is our asset manager at the time is going to assess that. If it is somebody else that can perform that job, somebody who's on site, or if we need to bring people in, I think it depends on the magnitude of the replacement, things like that. Some of those other jobs are mowing, different jobs throughout operations. So it depends on availability, it depends on people around, so schedule impacts. So it's tough to say at this point. We try and go as local as possible. All of our construction contractors try and go as local as possible, as well as operations. So it's always the goal, but it can't be guaranteed simply due to scheduling, availability, et cetera.
Okay. I'll guarantee there'll be availability of workers. When the project's done, we're going to have however many on there for 15 months. And yes, it's the nature of construction. I'm a union member myself, so it's great that it's being supported in that manner. But the ongoing, that would be good to have that information as well. We're selling this as something for the community, and we have union workers within the community, and those ongoing things, we want to support the community. Hence the reason I continually ask, what is your buy-in? So, the tax portion of it, 1.5 million average, correct? Over the duration. Just some quick numbers in my head here. Wouldn't, say, 200 rooftops on, say, 100 acres accomplish that same 1.5 million?
Yeah, you could come up with a scenario that could produce the same amount of income in terms of taxes, but really what you're looking at is, because the tax rates don't change, right? So apples to apples comparison, the tax rates don't change, and I'm looking for our total. So the analysis assumes that it's placed in value. The fair cash value, given that standard valuation, is $68.9 million. So you'd have to have a residential development of homes worth $69 million. It's not the 1.5. That's the taxes that's collected on something that's $69 million. So you need a residential development that worth $69 million. And the trade-off there is if you do a $69 million housing development, you have kids to educate. There are 0 kids from the Plano Skies. So school superintendents, in my experience in Illinois, love these projects because it comes with no cost to them and incremental revenue that they get to spend. There's no fire district, there's no burden on the libraries, et cetera. So it's an apples to apples comparison on the revenue side, but then you have to take into account the countervailing costs in a residential development.
Would it be fair to say that each one of those burdens, if we want to call them that, do generate jobs? More school, more kids in the school, more teachers, more city workers, more money going to Walmart, these types of things.
Well, in a certain sense, we are assuming, and I think it's a correct assumption, that if the monies flow into the school districts, that they're going to hire more teachers regardless, because they tend to be understaffed, or it might not be teachers, it might be support staff or something. So according to their historical pattern of here's their revenue and here's their number of employees, when they get this additional, revenue, tax revenue, or the model will assume that they'll hire more jobs even without the kids because they tend to be understaffed or lay off people.
but other locations, you know, other jobs in the town, there's really not a huge increase in those, other than something like that.
Yeah, the schools would be the biggest.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
It's my understanding this is the last expert, so Mr. Statman.
Yes, hi. I don't have a question for the witness so much, but I have more of a statement. Shall I speak now or later?
I would like to get through all the questions of the cross-examination prior to the testimony or testify part of the night. So just for clarification on how we're running things. Currently, right now, the witnesses are presented and we're doing a cross-examination. Commission goes first, then interested parties. Once we get through that, to my understanding, you guys are done with your presentation and complete.
Mr. Lewis is finished answering questions? Yes, we are.
Correct. Which then, I know, forgive me because I read a lot in the beginning of the meetings and I'm sure not all of it is retained, but now that once we are done with the cross-examination part where interested parties can ask questions, we will then move into a testify portion where then interested parties are welcome to approach the microphones. And it doesn't have to be just a question, it can be a question and a testify statement. So if you would like to just wait till we get done with the cross-examination, and then we'll have you back up. Currently still in cross-examination portion of the public hearing, which would be questions concerning the two speakers tonight, is where we're at currently.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's a lot to get through, and I want everyone to understand the procedure so that we don't feel like anyone's getting slighted or confused at any point during the process. So for clarification, cross-examination, interested parties that have signed up on the interested party registration sheet.
And that would be Chris Wicks. You're next.
Wikes.
Wikes.
Yeah.
On your, Chris Wikes, Sears Road, on your table 2, I would like to have seen where the on-site direct impacts of, you know, the people that are going to be employed by this. How many people, like the farming operations now, are going to be put out of jobs? I think that would be interesting because as a farm family, we have all this income, but boy, we have a lot of outgo in helping, fertilizer companies, gas delivery. I mean, there's a ton of people we support, so I would have liked to have seen a comparison.
We did do a land use analysis as part of the analysis, and did look at the impacts for agricultural land and those supply chain impacts that are associated with agriculture. And let's see if I can. Yeah, we looked at land use, but I can tell you, I have done for other studies the kind of apples to apples comparison using in-plan to say what in these acres would be lost. And I can't think of a situation where it hasn't been a net positive for solar over agriculture in the total. I've seen a few cases where the direct impacts have been greater for agriculture than it is for solar, But then when you can count the indirect and induced impacts, it's overwhelmingly positive.
Mr. Wykes?
Due to the extreme inefficiency of solar compared to other ways of generating it, I just, you know, the taxes are, we're going to get so much more money. I'd like to know exactly how much more money will the county get compared to the way it is right now in farmland, because you know, this is only going to do it on sunny days. On cloudy days, you're not going to get, you know, we have a lot of cloudy days from November to March that are, you know, yeah, in January you will get a few really nice sunny days that it's going to generate a lot of electricity those days, maybe. But I just wonder what the balance is, and, you know, I can only see this raising our electric bills, because what we need is cheap generation. And but I'm probably not the person to ask this question, but I'm just trying to see, you know, kilowatt hour compared to a nuclear facility. To me, we need energy that's going to do something.
Yeah, a couple great questions, good point. Just a clarification, when we're doing these valuations, it's on a per megawatt basis. It's the capacity of their, not the production. So when we're talking about per megawatt, it's not per megawatt hour or per kilowatt hour. That would be the production of electricity that's flowing onto the grid. It's they rightly, because of the factor that you just said, we don't want to tie it to productivity, we want to tie it to capacity. So that's what the taxes are collected on the capacity basis of what the nameplate capacity of those solar panels are that are installed. Your second question on the you know, on the electricity bill and would this add cost, there is a very reputable firm, I used to use it in my classes, called Lazards. It's an investment firm that does an analysis of all different types of electricity generation. Solar is some of the lowest cost forms of new generation, and there is variability, as you indicated, depending on where you site solar. You know, the latitude and other things. But in terms of looking at what do we build to build new generation, the cost of solar panels have come down dramatically over the last 20 years. There's a graph that shows the decline in the cost per watt of putting in solar in installations. And so it ends up being one of the low-cost forms of new generation.
I would also like to add, we do have a calculation of what the current taxes paid on the property that the project will be, and the 2025 taxes paid in 2026 was approximately $145,000. So you're going to be looking at $145,000 increased to $1.5 million on an average basis. So that kind of gives you a frame of reference for what it currently is in comparison to what it would be now.
Mike Burnett.
Mike Burnett, 14247 Sears Road. I'm interested in a little more, if you could expound on indirect impact jobs and induced impact jobs, because the on-site direct impact of 7, I might buy into, because Savion has already said they plan on mowing it twice a year. So we've got some landscapers working, and there will be solar techs periodically, and generously I'll give you the 7. That being said, the indirect impacts, I fail to see how that's going to create 14 jobs and induced impacts, because by and large this is a unmanned solar field that's going to be maintained twice a year unless there's a breakdown. So that would be question number 1.
Well, I think as we look at those direct impacts, my understanding of most solar farm operations is that those are solar technicians that would be there to do maintenance and repair and checking equipment. And in many cases, the mowing is contracted out to a local firm, landscape firm, that's going to mow when that needs to take place. So that would be an example of those supply chain impacts. In addition, when we are talking about that tax revenue, from an economic standpoint, even though this tax revenue is required to be paid, the jobs that would be created or supported for the schools and that the county and so forth associated with that tax bill would, if the county hires new county workers, if the school hires more teachers and so forth, they would also be included in those indirect impacts, because it's money flowing from the project to another entity local in the community that is doing the hiring.
But there's no kids or people, so why would we be hiring more government workers? That's a valid question. You pointed it out yourself. All this stuff comes in, but there's no additional. And in the previous meetings, Savion has basically said that there's not going to be anybody full-time on this site. That very clearly, there will not be anybody full-time on this site. It's going to maintenance workers and mowing jobs. But yet, the agricultural, we're going to be putting the farmers out, the truck drivers that transport the grain, the truck drivers that transport the diesel fuel, the people that help plant. We're going to lose over those 35 years well more jobs than what you're offering. I don't see any way around that. I mean, these people, this is what they do. Their jobs are going away because we're putting something in that's not going to actually create more jobs.
My only comment to the school district jobs is, and I have not been to your school board, but in school board meetings in Bloomington Normal, typically the way that it has worked is we have laid off teachers and support personnel because the budget can't support them. So we lay them off in the spring, and then we rehire them in the fall when some budget money is found according to formula. And so I think that's fairly typical of Illinois schools, as I've gone around the state, to say they are under stress and not receiving adequate funds from the state, or the state money comes in late and so forth. The advantage of these dollars coming here is that it's within the control of the local school board. This project will get taxed like all the other entities under the purview of that jurisdiction. So obviously, I'm not on the school board. I can't say for sure in terms of the school superintendent. I can just base it on what I've seen in around the state. That seems typical and is going along again with how the model calculates what are those indirect jobs that'll go along with that.
Andy Cano.
I got a couple related to this slide, so we can kind of stay on this one, and then we can move to a different one. So those again, he brought it up too, that the local 7 jobs. Do we have an example of what those would be? And you're talking about 7 full-time jobs you're going to put in place if this is built. Is that correct? Am I interpreting that correctly?
That is full-time
Right,
equivalent
2,000
job.
hours per person.
What's that?
2,000 hours per person.
2,000
7.
hours, that's right.
Okay, do we have examples of what those jobs would be? Because I'm not seeing on a self-sustaining solar farm what 7 people are doing every single day, 40 hours a week for 50 weeks a year. You may give them some vacation time, maybe you won't. I don't know. But 7? That's a lot of standing around for 7 people. So do you have examples of what those job titles are going to be? What jobs are those going to be? And of those 7 jobs, is there a requirement to any of those people to be a Kendall County resident? I think that should be a stipulation. If you're going to talk about being in local stuff, walk the walk, talk the talk, make it 7 people that live in Kendall County. They could commute from anywhere they wanted to, right? Then they should live here. There's probably 7 people around here that need a job, that would like that job. Let's talk about that. Then the other thing, 105 Kendall County jobs. Again, of all these ones that we're talking about creating, if we do this project, how many of these jobs are actually people that live and pay taxes in Kendall County, do you think?
So our attempt here in the 105 is to say that these are going to be those sourced from Kendall County. The thing that you can't guarantee, my understanding is the local unions have been engaged, and I saw them the first night here in support of the project. Those would be sourced from the local union. My understanding in looking at other Illinois projects is that the local unions are not just contained within the county, but it's a multi-county thing. And so how you get onto a job and job site is based on seniority and union rules that may or may not, prioritize people closest to the project.
Right, agreed. I would say that 105 jobs you're talking about, the task to make that Kendall County people exclusive would be pretty tough. But the 7 seems pretty simple. Okay. The other thing we talked about, you're kind of pitching the jobs is, community, and what's an example of local expenditures for the local economy that these jobs are going to bring? Because I'm seeing like maybe a half dozen cups of coffee and some pops at Casey's every day. These guys are going to bring their lunch. They're going to work 8 to 10 to 12 hours. Then they're going to go home. They're not buying groceries here. Okay. They're not using any local restaurants, maybe, but not on a regular basis. So to me, some of this information is a little bit skewed. I get it, what you're trying to, everybody here understands what you're trying to sell, to pitch. It just, sometimes it's frustrating to think that, it seems to me that you're talking to some people that just have no clue what's going on. Some of this stuff doesn't make any sense to me. None of us are that ignorant that think that all this is going to be just tea and crumpets. This is going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread to come to Plano. It's not. It's not even close.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question.
Please ask the questions.
There
That's
you
what
go.
this is for at this point.
$780 million in taxes, right, over that 35 years, correct? And then you said the difference, someone asked the question previous, okay, $145,000 a year is what is being paid in taxes of that same proposed property, okay? And you're paying 1.5 million. So that's 10 times. So 52 million over the year, 10 times, I'm guessing you're making a pretty good chunk of change if you can afford 10 times of what the local taxes are now. So why is it only 1.5? Why not 2.5 or 4.5 or 10.5? How did you come up to this number? Because you stated before that we were trying to make some changes to how to keep the property zoned agricultural, correct? But if it's only based on the use, what do we need all these different zoning classifications for then? If it's only based on the use, why does it have one? And then the taxes are based on the use. Why is there agricultural, industrial, commercial, residential?
Can we have one question instead of a lot of them? He can't answer all those. You ask a question, let
Okay.
the expert respond, please.
All right, well then, let's skip past that was more of a smart-ass comment with the 54 million thing. Why do we have the different tax classifications if it's only based on the use?
The tax classifications, you're talking about zoning classifications.
Yes, correct, sorry,
So
zoning
those are
classifications.
those are not related to how property taxes are generated. So you could have and some of our property that we're proposing for this use right now is zoned residential.
Right.
But it's zoned for its use, which is agricultural. So there's zoning, that's what this body and the city council is in charge of. They do the zoning, but when it comes to the tax assessment, that's done by the assessor based on the use. The assessor doesn't care what the property is zoned, just what the use is, because that's how the value of the property is calculated. So it's just a difference between different government bodies have different obligations, and that's how it's done here.
So if in that instance, then you can't keep multiple this property, how are the stuff zoned now? Why doesn't it stay the same? Why does it need to be all agricultural, why is it made? You're saying right now the property you're talking about using for this thing has multiple zonings right now, correct?
It does, has multiple zoning districts, and then part of the property is not located within the city of Plano and would have to be annexed in. And we're asking for it all to be zoned agricultural because under the city of Plano zoning ordinance, solar projects are permitted as a special use in the agricultural zoning district.
Okay. So, and then someone also brought up a couple different things with the Little Rock Township. And I'm under the impression that the state of Illinois has passed legislation making it illegal for local townships, communities, taxes to pass any ordinances banning the construction of solar and wind energy projects. Is that true?
I would ask that you keep your questions to Mr. Loomis's expert testimony and not state policy, which he did not discuss.
Okay, so you're not going to answer the question.
It doesn't have anything to do with...
This is your opportunity to ask questions with respect to the economic impact witness that just testified. That's what this is limited to, sir.
Okay, then I'm done.
Thank you.
Commission members, any more questions pertaining to the speaker? Just be also known that there will be a time to testify, and you will be able to come up and speak. It's just not at this exact moment. This would be the cross-examination, and it's just to keep order so that we can keep the process going smoothly. But we will have an opportunity for interested parties to come up and testify and question based on the entire project and presentation based on the last public hearings. So just right now, currently, we're talking only about the witness at the podium. But we will also now move into a testify portion, which you will be able to comment and ask questions based on the entire presentation that we've seen over the span of the last 2 months, just for clarifications. Commission members, any other questions regarding the witness at the podium here tonight or any other witnesses that were presented tonight? I will start with one, the $145,000 of tax revenue and adjusting to 1.5 million. Is that based on the annexation of all of the land? That 1.5 million is based on the annexation number, and the 145 is based on the only City of Plano property currently?
So the 145 is based on all of the property, but so it's going to have, of course, they're still paying taxes to all of the bodies, so it's an overall number of the total taxes paid. The 1.5 is assuming the annexation. So you're going to see a more dramatic increase for the City of Plano because they're going to become a taxing body of those annexed parcels when they previously were not. So you're gonna see a substantial increase for the City of Plano, and then of course, as well, the other taxing bodies.
I have one question. You have the Plano Skies solar listed on here as well as the Black Dirt Farms LLC. Can you just cover why the two of them are listed separately?
Yeah, to put together that slide, we just calculated according to existing public records who the top 10 taxpayers are in the City of Plano. So under, or last year, they were paying taxes. And so the Plano Skies is hypothetical to put within the context of those 10, where would it rank according to the top 10. There might have been a better way for us to represent that, to show that those are the existing tax-paying roles.
Any other questions? I don't know if this pertains to this particular witness or just in general land values and future growth projects tied to this. And so if this is not the question for this particular witness, and this might be for more of the Savion team, is there any future plans for any other substations or developments regarding, I mean, I know we are talking heavily about this particular solar project, but is there anything else future as far as land values or other projects within the area ahead?
No, the plan for this project is what we have proposed to you guys, what is in the application. If that were to change, we would be required to come back and receive an entirely new application and restart this process again. So not at this time.
So just when you, back to the original, you have a substation, correct, on there, that's harnessing this power. And then that substation is then transferring to another ComEd substation. And is there a line that is in plans to be built for that connection? Or how is this power in regards to the property values around it? Will there be another line built? Or how are we taking that power from that substation? And this is only being asked now because of the property values around it. Mm-hmm. How are we harnessing that power in that substation and translating it to probably, I would assume, another substation before putting it on the grid? And are there any agreements to a line for potential properties around this?
Yes, so the project is the panels will produce the energy. Okay. It's all going to flow to our project substation, which will be managed by the owner and operator of the project. That will then step the energy up to a higher voltage, which will go into the ComEd substation that will be owned and operated by them. It will be constructed by them. We will not have access to that. After that is built, what they'll essentially do is cut the line that is already existing there and just plug it into the substation. So now there is an access point to the line that's already existing.
Are all of these lines, as well as the ComEd one that you won't have access to, on the property?
Yes, the line that it goes through our property right now, and we will have essentially two substations side by side. So they will be connected by a couple 100-foot line between the two substations, but they'll be side by side, and we will own and operate one, ComEd will own and operate the other. And then they have their full jurisdiction over their line as well. That is not, we get no
Okay.
control over the line at that point.
So as far as transmitting this power, it is staying within the acreage that you have shown. There's no additional lines being, okay.
No.
That was one of the questions that I'd had. Just wanting to know if there's any other properties that these lines will be going to. With that, I would. So if commission members have no further questions for the witness, we will move on to any final statements from Savion, as this is your last presentation. Ending the presentation, if you have any ending comments for tonight.
We have no other witnesses tonight, or if we could have a couple minutes to talk whether we do rebuttal. But once the Plan Commission closes the public hearing, then you do your deliberations. We, of course, would like to reserve our final presentation as far as argument once we know what's on the Plan Commission's mind.
So time constraint would be at 8:30, we end, just as far as the public hearing portion, to allow the 3-minute limit for the public speakers, which I do find very important. That keeps us within our 9 o'clock timeframe. At this moment, we would either need to open this to a testify portion, or we could take a motion to continue the public hearing for the testify portion of the process. And I'm looking at my commission members to see, and then we would take a 10-minute recess before public comment.
You want a motion?
Well, I do think, in my own mindset here, in order to give more than 9 minutes of testimony, which I don't feel is a very fair shake at the testimony portion, which I find so valuable during public hearings, I would then need a motion to continue the public hearing, and then that would then, Savion is done with their witness presentation.
Correct.
And we would be addressing a testify portion of the public hearing.
I make a motion that we extend it.
We would,
It'd be a motion to continue the hearing to your next date, at which we would have the interested parties' presentation of their evidence.
and
Thank you for that verbiage. I
And
make that
just-
motion.
the motion also, to add to it, would be for the meeting at August 3rd, from 6 to 9 p.m.
I make that motion.
Motion on the floor to continue the public hearing to August 3rd, from 6 to 9, for the testify portion.
Second.
Motion by Cliff Olson, seconded by Mr. Riddle. Discussion? Roll call vote.
Olson,
Yes.
Riddle,
Yes.
Brummel,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Klatt,
Yes.
Router,
Yes.
Roderick,
Yes.
Motion carries. So we will now be continuing the public hearing to the next date of August 3rd from 6 to 9 p.m. Location to be determined due to the fact that we will let the public know where the location will be as school is starting and we need to secure a location. If this is not available, it would be here or City Hall. So we will keep the public notified on that. It will be posted either way 48 hours prior to the meeting so that everyone knows. And then at that point, we will enter the testify portion for the interested parties that are allowed to come, and we can go through that whole process at that time. For right now, I'd like to take a 10-minute recess and come back to start the public comment portion of our meeting at 8:30. And we will see you in a minute. If everyone would like to take their seats so we can resume after our recess here for public comment. Thank you. You can hear me, you can see my little wheels going. I'll start going over the policy pertaining to public comment. Persons wishing to speak tonight may do so after being recognized for that purpose by the chair, myself. Only one person may address the Plan Commission at a time. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person and no longer than 30 minutes in total. We will be using a running clock located here to my right so that the speakers can see how much time they will have remaining to speak. I will be asking you at the end of 3 minutes to please wrap up your last sentence and finish, and any person's unused time may not be traded, utilized, or added to another person's comment time. In other words, you may not yield time in order for others to talk longer. The Plano Commission at any time, without creating precedent, may expand the numbers of those permitted to speak at any given meeting. Meaning that if we're running a little past 9 o'clock, I'm willing to stay later so that I have an opportunity for everyone on the list to speak. Persons addressing the Plan Commission shall identify themselves for the record and for the Plan Commission and the members of the public attending the meeting tonight. Persons addressing the Plan Commission will offer all comments in a courteous and professional manner and refrain from using inappropriate, offensive, or profane language. The Plan Commission will not respond or engage in debate or discussion relating to the comments offered or made. This public comment period is intended to afford the members of the public with an opportunity to speak and express their views to the Plan Commission. The Plan Commission will take in all comments made by its speakers under its advisement. If you signed up tonight and wish to speak and you did not get a chance to talk tonight, then we will keep your name on the list in the order that it was written, and you'll have an opportunity to speak at the next meeting if you so wish to. In the event that you're on the list and not able to attend the next meeting, then you'll need to re-sign up to speak at the next meeting that you can attend. With that being stated, let us start off with our first public comment. Timer's ready. First public comment speaker.
Mike Remolano. Give or take a little bit on the pronunciation. Please proceed, sir.
You did great. That was good. Thanks. Mike Remolona, I'm with the Laborers Union. So I just want to make a comment. It's actually related to Dr. Loomis's presentation. So early in his presentation, he mentioned a concept called economic leakage. From a labor perspective in Illinois, the solar industry can be quite a leaky industry. You know, something between 60 to 80% of solar jobs and construction are given to out-of-state workers. And the only way to keep the economic benefits that Dr. Loomis described in his presentation in the state and in the county is to do what Savion has done, which is to sign a PLA with the unions and committing to union local labor. Otherwise, the project can go like many other projects in the state go, where most of the jobs actually go to out-of-state workers. When we look at the data, you know, I was just looking at some data from earlier this year on other projects in the state. You have workers coming from Alabama, Texas, Wyoming. I think I saw Oregon. I don't know why they do this, but this project at least, kudos to Savion for signing the Tri-Trade PLA and keeping all those jobs local and at least in-state. Thank you.
Ray Bagley. Ray. On deck is Sean Thomas.
Some of this has been covered. My name is Raymond Bagley. I am a 53-year resident of Little Rock Township and retired 37-year union member. The first thing I want to talk about are the unions. You will be working 12 to 18 months on this proposed job and then go off to your next job site. You will get paid for working. Not one of the union members has stood up and spoke and talked about the farmers who will be losing their jobs because of greed. They are taking good productive lands from the farmers that could buy food, clothing, health benefits for themselves and their children. It is too bad that no one seems to care about the American farmer or the land that will be used for these solar farms. Sevion is telling us that we will receive approximately $1.3 million a year. What about the issue of security on the solar farms? Are the cost to monitor these fields from possible copper thieves who will be bringing unlawful crime to Plano? Who will be paying for security are the police. Our police should be protecting Plano citizens and businesses. Will paying the security come out of the proposed $1.3 million? I am sorry to see people representing Sevion on this panel smirking and laughing when a citizen stands up and speaks from their heart because they don't want a solar field in their front or backyard. You should be more respectful of how they feel. I feel that you wouldn't want to see a solar field next to your house. And I want to thank all the people from Plano for making the fight.
Thank you. Sean Thomas. And then be followed by Linda Erickson.
Good evening, and thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I know you got a tough decision ahead of you, and I know you don't take your fiscal responsibility lightly. My name is Sean Thomas. I'm a 30-plus year electrician with IBW Local 461. We represent hundreds of electricians that service the Kane and Kendall County areas. I raised my wife and my two kids. We raised them in Oswego. I've been a member of the Kendall County community for 30-plus years. This conversation and this project is really a microcosm of what I've seen the entire time I've been in Kendall County, and that's the not in my backyard mentality. I have members that travel out of this county through Kane County and work in DuPage County. They work in Will County. They work in DeKalb County. They go as far out as Stevenson County, Joe Davies County, and Carroll County to do projects like this. They buy houses here. They pay for groceries here. They put their kids through school here, but yet they can't work here. My only question to you is, what happens when the next time that blue-collar worker leaves here, it's in a moving van? What will that look like to your fiscal responsibility and to the stores and to the restaurants that all of our members patronize? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Linda Erickson. Mike Bond. Next after Mr. Bond would be Cameron Mueller.
I also want to add that I meant to mention earlier, if anyone cannot approach the microphones and needs a portable microphone brought to them, we are equipped to do that. So if anyone on the list would like to remain seated for whatever reason, we can bring you a microphone. Just to let you know, I meant to mention that earlier. Sorry, go ahead, Mr.
Thank you, Commission. My name is Mike Bond. We moved here over 40 years because of the beautiful area, rural setting here, raised our kids here. These hearings have answered some questions, and they've also raised some questions. So I don't have a firm opinion either way. Our farmland's exceptional. Farming's tough. The fertilizer, fuel, and expenses are through the roof. Weather, floods, especially the one we just had, storm, drought, make it a precarious occupation. So we see many farms going under, being taken up by larger conglomerates. So what do we do with the farmland? First choice, obviously, keep it farmland, because we've got some great farmland here. Sometimes that's hard to do. We can put in a data center. Look at Yorkville. We want that? Big monstrosity, using up our aquifer, using up our energy? Probably not. Wind turbines, we've got problems with that. Okay, subdivisions, great. They use our aquifer, they strip our farmland, raise our taxes, okay, and drain our schools. So we need energy sources. We've seen how effective gas, oil, and coal is. Nuclear, we've got problems with where the waste management is. So solar can be effective. It can be relatively inexpensive. The bulk of the land potentially can be returned. We have no drain of energy, no drain of water or our aquifers. The drawback is the aesthetics, the construction hassles, and I still want to know how many have been decommissioned and how effective is this process? Is it guarantee? Are they going to get this back to farmable land? We don't know that. It hasn't been around long enough. So many of us in these meetings are outside the city limits living in the township. What's the status of the township's moratorium on the solar fields in the township? If this is going to go through, and unfortunately for those of us in the township, a lot of things have gone through and we really don't have a voice in it. But if it's going to go through, Plano, you came up with a set of very rigorous guidelines. Stick to it. Berms are needed. Vegetative barriers are needed. Maintenance agreements are needed. Decommissioning procedures need to be maintained. Make sure funding is available for the duration of the project life. Don't lower your standards. Don't cave to the variance requests. They're doing it to save money. Holding companies like Shell have very deep pockets. You came up with some very good standards. If we have to put these things in, if this is our only option, stay with it. They build, they sell, they go, and we're left with the product. Make your decision carefully because the impact is very long term. Too many of these decisions are made where we really have no say. They just go through. So again, make your decision carefully because it affects all of us that love it here and want to be here, and as you do too. So thank you. That's all I got to say.
Cameron Mueller. Going once, going twice.
No, he's
coming
he's
up.
coming.
Okay. After Mr. Mueller is Sherry Bond.
I am Cameron Mueller, resident since 2013. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out that I heard this evening. The tax burden for the Savion solar plant will be about $1.5 million a year. First year, it will bring in more than Menards. The only problem with that is that Menards employs 400 to 700 people a year, including owner-operator truck drivers. So pretty big difference on the wage scale, as you can see. There's also been several questions not answered by Savion or any of their experts, like if there is going to be a tornado that rips through here, who's going to pick it up? Is that burden on the city? Is it on Savion? Is it going to be on me when I have to pick it out of my front yard? Nobody knows. No one's answering that question. It's a pretty big question. So it also puts a chokehold on our entire town. We have nowhere to expand. We have nowhere to go. Our elementary school is already overcrowded, and we have to put an expansion on that. Within the next 10 years, you're going to have to put an expansion on every single school because those kids are going to go through the school district of Plano, and they need a place to go. So unless our schools can handle the overcrowded population of students that we have now, what they're getting in taxes per year from this will not be enough to sustain that over the long course of 35 years. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sherry Bond and then Karen Henry.
I'm Sheree Bond. I'm going to keep this very short because I hate public speaking. I ask you to please respect the wishes of the residents of Little Rock Township. When we asked for no data centers and no solar farms in our township. Little Rock Township has very rich soil, and I want to thank all the farmers and farm families here and everyone who's associated with farming, because you supply the food that we eat, and without you, we would all be starving, and I don't think we appreciate farmers near enough. I ask you, as a Plano Planning Commission, you put a lot of time and effort into writing the ordinances. Stick to them. Don't lower your standards just because Savion wants less berms, they want less landscaping. You need to negotiate very hard with them. Stick to it. Don't sell us out cheaply. How much does Little Rock Township get? This is what, on his slide, in 2029, Little Rock Township got $22,462. What a whopping big amount. And this is where it's going to be affected the most. By 2046, we got $10,458. Keep that in mind, please, when you're making your decision.
Karen Henry. Next would be Herb Walton, whose handwriting is about as bad as mine.
Good evening. We heard testimony that the solar panels used in this project is First Solar Series 7 biaxial panels. These panels are rated low efficiency below manufacturers of silicon panels. These panels contain cadmium telluride. These panels have a weak product warranty of 10 to 12 years. The maximum energy production is experienced in warmer climates. We heard water flowing from the site will have sediment in it. Any way you look at it, that is soil erosion. We were told that the project will not provide electricity, lower the electric bills, or lower the tax bills for Plano residents. Savion testified sound studies have no impact of adjacent properties, yet they tell us there was no construction study of the 110 decimal pile drivers performed. We learned no sound barriers will be part of this project, even though sound carries and echoes. Hearing protection for construction workers was not addressed. We learned that upon construction completion, there will be only 2 to 4 permanent workers, but now you say 7. We were told water to clean the panels would be trucked in, but not told where the water was coming from. I am deeply concerned for the health and well-being of the residents in the area of this project. Are we to believe Savion's witness that the Plano Skies project is safely sited and will not impact the public health, safety, or welfare of local residents? It is too late when there is microbial contamination, chemical contamination, local water table and flow disruptions, native ecosystems impacted, drainage tile damage, toxic materials from cracked panels, 110 decimal sounds from pile drivers, 91 decimal sounds from inverters and transformers, damage to private wells and aquifer, fires, and the list goes on and on. And then there is the water in the 12 ponds that support mosquito breeding, further endangering our residents' health when the second batch of mosquitoes in Kendall County test positive for West Nile virus. When John Weiss asked Savion's witness if farming is recommended after soil is decommissioned, his answer was the soil quality would be better after decommissioning. Now, how can this be when they will not remove any materials over 5 feet and leave it in the ground? We learn Kendall County is still under township form of government, and Illinois Public Act 104-0458, effective June 1st, is unconstitutional. An unconstitutional act is not law. Okay, and yet Savion and the city continued the hearings and advanced the project when solar is banned in Little Rock Township which includes Plano. Thank you.
Mr. Walton? And then Mr. Wicks?
Excuse me, Herb Walton from Plano. Most of my questions were answered tonight, or not answered, but addressed. My only question to Savion is maybe they can't do anything, is when the taxes that are going to the school district, we've had experience with that when I came to Menards. The state called it a windfall and withheld what we paid and took it from Menards. And they're going to do the same thing. Excuse me, for you guys, I'm sure. Thanks.
Mr. Wikes, would you like to say something else? You both? Okay. James Connolly. Going once, going twice, going three times. Chris Childress. And then Dorothy Pigney.
Hi, Chris Childress. First, I just want to tell you guys you've done a heck of a job here. I've seen an awful lot of these meetings. I really commend you guys, Madam Chair, and the committee and the City Council for putting this on and letting everybody have an opportunity to talk here. My name is Chris Childress. I spent more than 40 years here in the Illinois energy business. I own a company called Progressive Business Solutions, where we help municipalities across the Fox Valley put together energy projects for their communities. I've watched towns capture the value and the benefit of something like this, and I've watched towns let it walk out the door. I'm really here to talk about the trick bag that the state of Illinois has put you in and put the City Council in and put the county in eventually. And that's state of Illinois law, and that's something that these people need to hear about, that I'm sure you guys may have heard about, and then maybe you can be advised on by your council, because it's very important. A vote to deny the Plano Skies project is not a vote to stop it. Under the Illinois state law, the siting of this project doesn't disappear. If the city says no, it goes to the county. The county doesn't have the authority, because of the state law, to deny this project if it meets the state requirements, which as presented, this project does. A county can't impose standards more restrictive than the state. The city of Plano is not held to that ceiling, and that's why this is so important. The application in front of you far exceeds the requirement minimums of the state board, or the state requirements. If you hand it to the county, that shrinks and you lose control. If the city overplays their hand and puts in unnecessary berm requirements or excessive cost regulations, that could have the same effect as denying the project. And Savion will just go to the county, and the county's got to approve it. What happens then? The city loses control. And I don't think you want that, and I don't think these people want that. The legal fact is, the minute you reject this project, or the city rejects the project, you guys lose control. The money follows the same logic. Most of the land sits outside the city today. If the city annexes and permits it, they get the tax revenue. If they don't, they lose part of their city, and they lose the tax revenue of the additional. And the county's got to pass it, according to the state law. Savion has offered also to put a community benefits agreement in place, which is additional revenue that will go to the city. That all goes away if the city decides to get rid of it. So in closing, I'm just saying, I would try to do the right thing, keep the control in your hands, and pass it here so it doesn't go to the county and the county gets forced to pass it. You lose part of your city and you lose tax revenue. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the assistance.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the commission and fellow neighbors. I'm here tonight, not for myself, but for my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren, their future. We are standing at a critical crossroads for our community. A massive out-of-state corporation is asking us to hand over more than 1,500 acres of our prime farmland. By the way, China will not let solar panels on their prime farmland. They say it's for growing food. They've come to us with slick slideshows, glossy brochures, and multi-million-dollar promises. But tonight, we need to pull back the curtain on this corporate sales pitch and look at the real, undeniable cost of the Plano Skies solar project, the environmental illusion. First, let's talk about the massive environment irony here. We are told this project is about clean, green energy. But what about the massive carbon footprint it takes just to get these panels to our backyards? Nobody's talked about that. Why? These solar panels don't just appear out of thin air. They are manufactured using heavy industrial processes, often powered by coal, and then some shipped across oceans and hauled across the country on diesel trains and semi-trucks. And what happens when they get here? The disruption of our local ecosystem will be immediate. They're going to dig up our soil, grading and tearing up agricultural land that has sustained this region for generations. We are going to see an endless parade of heavy construction trucks, flatbeds, heavy machinery rolling down our local roads day in and day out. The diesel emissions, the dust, the destruction of our infrastructure, and the sheer volume of traffic will completely transform our quiet rural area into an industrial construction zone. How is destroying our local soil and burning thousands of gallons of diesel fuel considered saving the environment? The tax money mirage. Then there is the financial carrot they are dangling in front of us. The developers love to repeat one number to buy our silence. The millions of dollars promised in property tax revenue for our local schools. But we need to ask the tough question that no one on the board wants to answer. Where does the money really go? Does a massive influx of corporate cash automatically translate to better reading scores, smaller class sizes, or actual improvements for our students? History and data tells us a very different story. Too often, these massive windfalls never make it to the classroom. Instead, the money gets swallowed up by administrative bloat, expanding school bureaucracies, and, bear with me, backroom union negotiations. The students don't see the benefit, and the taxpayers don't see their bills go down. We cannot allow big corporations to use our school system as a shield to justify an industrial land grab. We need to see this project for what it truly is, a high-stakes play by a massive corporate entity looking to cash in on federal subsidies.
Can you wrap it up? Your 3 minutes is up.
Bear with me.
No, we're trying to wrap it up, please.
I will, at the expense of our community. So, okay, we have to look into what these big corporations are trying to do to small communities like ours. And we have to put a halt to it tonight. I urge this commission to protect our residents.
We're going to cut that off at this point.
Okay, vote no.
Thank you.
Mrs. Pickney is the last speaker on our list tonight, and I do thank everyone. I know that 3 minutes, when we originally came up with this meeting, 3 minutes, the 3-minute limit is to just keep order and let as many people talk as possible. So bear with me. I like everyone to be able to finish their sentence, but the 3 minutes was just to keep as many speakers as possible and not limit it to just, 2 or 3. So thank you for your consideration of that. And thank you everyone for attending. I need a motion to adjourn, and before we do that, just a reminder that the next meeting would be presented, the next meeting will be August 3rd from 6 to 9 p.m. We will be reopening our public hearing, which we will then go into our testify portion. So please, all interested parties, come with your testify statements, and that location is to be determined. It will be either here or City Hall, which will be posted 48 hours prior to the meeting. So if anyone has any questions, please contact City Hall for the location of that meeting. With that being said, thank you everyone for attending tonight. Thank you for your witnesses for traveling here. And I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Router to adjourn. I need a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Riddle. Roll call vote.
Router,
Yes.
Riddle,
Yes.
Bromo,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Platt,
Yes.
Wilson,
Yes.
Roderick.
Yes.
Motion carries. Meeting adjourned till August 3rd.